So today we're going to talk about Chanel Miller. And look, this isn't just about a crime or some court case you might have heard about. This is really about the powerful and inspiring journey of a woman who had her identity taken from her and then fought, step by painful step, to reclaim her own story.
I was, I am, I will be. These three little phrases, they're really the framework for her entire story. She actually created this massive 70-foot mural for the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco, and these words are right at the heart of it. They perfectly capture her incredible journey of transformation. Let's get into it. Okay, so before we dive into the past, I think it's absolutely crucial that we start with who Chanel Miller is right now, today. Not who she was defined as or what was done to her, but who she has become through her own strength and her own talent. I mean, we're talking about a celebrated author. Her memoir, Know My Name, was a New York Times bestseller. She's an incredible artist whose work is displayed in major museums, and on top of all of that, she's become this powerful, essential advocate for survivors everywhere. This is Chanel Miller. Now let's understand the journey that brought her to this point. All right, now we have to go back in time, back to a night in January 2015, because this is the moment when her identity was essentially stolen from her, and in its place, this legal name, this pseudonym, was created. The details of what happened that night are, well, they're pretty stark. Around 1 in the morning, she was sexually assaulted while unconscious behind a dumpster at a Stanford fraternity party. Now, the attack was actually interrupted by 2 Swedish graduate students who saw what was happening. They tackled the assailant, Brock Turner, and held him down until the police got there. The next thing Chanel remembers is waking up in a hospital on a gurney, totally confused, with dried blood on her hands. It took until 4:15 a.m. for her to fully regain consciousness. So in the aftermath of all this, she basically stopped being Chanel Miller in the public eye. To protect her privacy, the court, the media, they all started calling her Emily Doe. And while this was supposed to be a shield to protect her, it also had this effect of completely erasing her, reducing her entire being down to this one traumatic event. What came next was, honestly, a legal process that often felt less like a search for justice and more like a second attack. The trial itself became this whole other source of trauma, all built on this foundation of, systemic victim blaming. And you just have to look at how the two of them were portrayed. The contrast it's just staggering. For Brock Turner, the narrative was all about his potential. His athletic career was brought up constantly. His father even said he was just struggling to fit in. But for Chanel, it was a completely different story. She was judged for drinking, questioned about her dating life. She was essentially reduced to a shadow in her own story. So imagine sitting in that courtroom. The whole experience was just grueling. She had to endure these intensely personal, targeted questions designed to tear her down. And the language they used, it was so cold, so dehumanizing, forcing her to hear this intimate violation described in sterile terms like penile penetration. This right here, this is a huge reason why so many survivors just don't come forward. It feels like you're the one on trial. But then something shifted. At the sentencing, in that quiet courtroom, an anonymous victim found a voice. And it wasn't just any voice. It was a voice so powerful, it literally echoed around the world, and it completely changed the public conversation. Get this, she wrote a victim impact statement that was over 7,000 words long. This wasn't just some legal document. This was her testimony, her truth, her pain, and her power all on the page. And she was determined to read every single word of it right to his face. And it starts with this line, just one of the most powerful, unforgettable opening lines you will ever hear. It just immediately slices through all the legal noise and grounds you in the raw human reality of what happened. In this next quote, it just perfectly captures the heart of her statement. It's a list of everything that was taken from her, but it ends with this defiant reclamation. It's that last part, until today. That was the moment, the turning point where she starts taking it all back. That statement went absolutely viral. It was read by millions, even read out loud on the floor of the U.S. Congress. But even after all that, for years, she was still Emily Doe to the world. But then, in September 2019, with her memoir about to be released, she took that final, massive step to reclaim her own story and, most importantly, her name. Just stop and think about that for a second. For 4.5 years, her public identity was defined entirely by her trauma. She existed as a symbol, a case number, a nameless victim.
But that was all about to change. And then, with 3 simple words, she changed everything. She was no longer Emily Doe. She was, and she always had been, Chanel Miller. This was a monumental act of courage. She was no longer a subject in a story written by others. She was the author. So, what does life look like now? How has this incredible act of reclamation shaped who she is today? Well, since revealing her identity, she has poured all of that experience into her art, into her advocacy, and into showing the world what healing can really look like. You can actually see this idea perfectly symbolized on the cover of her book. It's based on this Japanese art form called kintsugi. The whole idea is that when a piece of pottery breaks, you repair it with gold. You don't hide the cracks, you highlight them. You treat the repair as a beautiful, essential part of the object's history. It's the perfect metaphor for her journey. And really, Chanel Miller's story makes you ask yourself, what does it really mean to heal? Her journey seems to tell us that healing isn't about erasing the damage or pretending the cracks aren't there. It's about integrating those broken pieces, finding strength in the repair, and creating something new, whole, and maybe even more beautiful than before. And that brings us to one last incredibly powerful quote from her memoir. Stay tender with your power. Fight because it is your life, not anyone else's. See, it's not just about the fight. It's about how you fight, with tenderness, with purpose, and who you're fighting for. You're fighting for your life because it's yours, and no one else's.